Hey guys, and welcome back to Europe in Detail. In this episode we start working on the far side of the tunnel that we made in the last episode, and the first thing we get to work on is a massive custom art gallery, and here's a little sneak peek of it here. I've made it on a corner so that we can see right through it and make the most of the glass facade, but there's a lot of work we get to before we actually get to the building of this, and I'll explain to you guys what I'm doing here with all this terraforming before we get to that. So basically I'm making these big large flat areas here, and I'm leaving parts of it so that I can put some canals in as well, and I'm gonna run a very simple tram line in here. So from your guys' comments and some of the thoughts that I've had previously, I think what we're gonna do with the city is end up having a whole bunch of different little villages all connected with a train line or a tram line. And as soon as I sort of decided that, yep, that's the direction I want to take the series, then, it was pretty imperative to get a tram line in here before we started building the town out too much. And it's just running in on some existing roadways that might be a few hundred years old, but have since been upgraded to the tram roads, because that's probably how they do it in real life anyway. So this part of the town is indeed going to be the more modern part. It's going to have some more modern buildings. Obviously the art gallery that you've seen before is definitely contemporary style. So this area we are going to see a bit more modern construction. Not a huge amount, there's still very much going to be a lot of history, but there's also now a lot of tourism, and the tram just makes a whole lot of sense, and it looks beautiful, and they're a heap of fun to put in. And I guess this is probably going to be the only flat area of this particular little town as well. So this would be a good place to put a lot of the services that we may need in the city, and also a main tram stop. And that was such a fun episode to do. Hopefully you guys enjoy that one. I am about 2 to 3 episodes ahead of what you guys are seeing. So that particular episode is the next one. So yeah, hopefully you guys like it. So here you see me, I'm using the Dutch canal set, and that comes with these roads as well. I'm setting all of these up just really quickly. I know I'm going to change a lot of this as I build, but I don't want any grid pattern to this whatsoever. I actually really struggled putting these roads in because I had to fight how I would normally do it. I really wanted them to look chaotic and all over the place. And even though I know I'm probably going to modify these in future, I still need to get these in somewhat where they're going to go before I commit to building this art gallery. And I guess the inspiration for the art gallery has come from a few places, but I really enjoy making custom buildings, especially ones where I can get the pedestrians walking through them, and get them a usable part of the city. Obviously I'm limited to a couple of things when it comes to making these buildings. One, at least one of the walls needs to be glass so that we can see inside. There's absolutely no point in detailing the inside of a building if we can't see in there. And I guess the other point would be, you really want to try and place it in a place where it gets it's in plain view sort of thing. So a waterfront, or on top of a hill, or in this case on a really sharp angled corner. And I'm going for glass right around the whole thing so we can see right through the building. And like I mentioned quickly earlier, I have built a few of these before, so the one thing I've learned is get these pedestrian paths in early and then build around them. So initially here you'll see me use the vanilla pathway as a raised option and set it all in place. This is so I know where it is, I can see it as I'm setting it in place, and then I'll turn it all invisible once I've sort of got it where I want it to go. And I'm trying to make 2 levels here. I'm making it enter in through some doorways underneath and then come up really, really steep. You won't see that part. It'll look like it's popping back through 2 more doors and then up onto an upper level. And this path doesn't really go anywhere in particular. It just sort of loops around. But hopefully, once we get a few more people in the city, they'll start using it and walking through the gallery. And that really, really tops it off. It just looks really cool. So the idea with the building here is to get all of the main parts in first, so the floors, the walls, make them look as neat as I can, get the doors in the right position. I do end up putting in a very small third level here with a restaurant and just a social area up there. And once I'm happy with how everything is and the placement of everything, then I can carry on with all the detailing. And we go pretty hardcore in here, even for a somewhat minimal building. Yeah, there's a fair bit of detail in here. I'm not afraid to do a little bit of research when it comes to my City Skylines series, and building this art gallery was no different. I scoured across Google for a few hours looking at different art galleries and stuff like that. More specifically, I was looking at European art galleries, and to be honest, I didn't really find anything that looked like what I ended up building. But I guess I just wanted confirmation that this sort of contemporary style build can work in an old village, and I did find a couple of really unique and awesome photos that have, they've spurred me on and given me the inspiration to do this. But the rest of this is pretty much just out of my imagination, and I imagine this as sort of like a big amphitheatre with these little wee walls or partitions everywhere with the artwork on it. Very, very minimalistic, like I mentioned earlier. Maybe there's just a few lights around the place and really low lighting as well. Actually, come to mention it, there is one building that I sort of did use as inspiration, although it doesn't really look anything like it. I'll show you guys a photo of it anyway. But yeah, this is in the town where I'm from in New Zealand. It's called the Govett Brewster Art Gallery, and it's a world famous art gallery, and it has the art from an artist called Len Lai, who was, he was wired a bit differently, but I guess you could say that probably about every good artist that's ever lived. But when we look at a photo of the Govett Brewster Art Gallery, you know, there's nice curves, it is very, very contemporary, it's a very simple building, and inside it's reflected much the same. And this is actually located in one of the oldest parts of this town that I live in as well. So it may not be as old as this European town or anywhere near it, but you know, that there's a pub across the road from it, put it this way, and that's probably about 140 years old. And the contrast between the gallery and that pub is just magnificent. So, you know, I'd imagine it here, you know, maybe the gap's 500 years. It's, pretty cool, and I was excited to do this. Aside from putting the paths in early so I know where I'm building, another thing I like to do is leave the roof and the facade off it until I've finished building the inside. It seems so obvious, but man, I've done it backwards so many times. So one of the things that I've really tried with this building is to try and keep some of the materials original. As contemporary and modern as the build may be, we see lots of timber, lots of stone, lots of traditional building, you know, natural materials. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about natural materials because part of my job in real life is working with them. And aside from them matching, you know, the materials that are used on some of these ancient buildings in the town, they look so beautiful and they're 100% sustainable. A pretty wicked combo. So the next thing I move on to is I want to make some like gantry, or I guess gantry is probably the right word. I want to make a gantry for the lights. I want to have some dim lighting, some strip lighting that's hanging from the ceiling, and the rest of the ceiling, like I said, is pretty open. It's pretty much an amphitheatre in here. So I went onto the Steam workshop and was having a gander around for some lights, and I found a couple, but I couldn't really find anything that was perfect. And once I got back into the game, I found these ones here, and these are actually the vanilla ones, or actually I think they are, but they might be from a DLC. I'm not sure which one they're from though. It might be the concerts one. That would make a lot of sense. But these were absolutely perfect. They are in a strip, they look perfect on the gantry, and they're really dimly lit, which is bang on. So the reason why you see me build this out on the road is because it was quite temperamental to build and a bit meticulous, and I want to put 3 or 4 of these inside the building. So I've built it outside so I can copy and paste it inside the building exactly where I want it. And the very last thing I'll do is I go through and there's some landmarks, like Chinese landmarks on the Steam Workshop. I use PO and squeeze them down really small and put them inside as well, and they kind of look like sculptures, which is really cool. And after I do this, that's pretty much the inside complete. There's a couple more things we do, but yeah, it's starting to look really cool. So the door goes in here. This is where we've put our pedestrian path in, so it looks like the people are going in and out the door. And what I've done for a door here is just squeeze down another glass pane really small and put it slightly in front of the main pane, so it looks like it's sort of a doorway. And I've used the PO modules as well to make these doors look like they're sort of automatically opening. But the entryway here very much follows the rest of the theme. It's really simple and contemporary. There's not much to it. It's got nice easy access off the road, and this is going to be a fairly main road as well. Like I mentioned earlier, all of these roads on this flat part of the city are going to have services and lots of entertainment, and hopefully with lots of people walking past and going into the art gallery and through here, it should look really busy. I found these really cool, like holographic alphabet letters on the Steam Workshop, and I PO'd these and made them say art gallery, and it looked all flash and all the rest of it. And yeah, I'm not sure if English is right either, but in the end these didn't even load back in, and I had a feeling this might happen. I've had this happen in another series of mine. When you use procedural objects on holographic material, sometimes they won't load back in. So yeah, you'll see me spend a fair bit of time doing this, but it's for nothing really. It doesn't load back in. But with that, that signifies the end of the art gallery build, and we carry on putting some buildings in the surround or the immediate surrounding area here. We can get a pretty good view now of the art gallery that we've just built, and what do you guys think of that? I think it'll look much better with people going through it, so we're going to have to wait a little bit longer to see that. But in the meantime, you can see me detail across the river here, or across the road near the river I should say. And here I'm really just focusing on making this part look a lot different from everything else that I've built. It's really easy to get suckered into building areas with the same materials. Like for instance, you might find a really useful pier that can be manipulated and the wood looks good and you can use it for various things. It's very easy to get tempted into using it everywhere. So with this area here, I'm really trying to use materials I haven't used yet and lay them in a way that I haven't done yet. My experience is the more variety we can add to a city or a town or whatever it is we're building, the more realistic it looks. So I extend this little wooden pier right around the back of this building, and then I use a brick key and then make sort of a surface area here where I can put some access to the rear of these buildings, make this look like a usable area back here. And again, we get all the basic stuff in first, so doors, fences, all of that sort of jazz. And the fence here, I've tried to use a fence that sort of looks old and decayed because it's right next to the sea, and yeah, it'd be pretty weathered. And with a fair amount of patience, we turn this into a clothing shop out on the wooden pier and a little seafood restaurant down in the alleyway. And I really like how this area is right next to some bush and scrub and just really natural, untamed terrain. gives a good contrast. The next bit we move on to, well, I'm gonna be honest, I was so undecided on what to do here, not because I couldn't come up with anything, but because I had 3 or 4 good ideas and I couldn't choose between them. It doesn't happen very often, so I'll take it when it does happen, but it did offer a problem, and it took many nights of thinking to decide on what I was going to do here, and I ended up going for the simplest design of the 4 or 5 or so that I had in mind. And I guess the reason I went for this particular one was because here in New Zealand we have a museum called the Pokiariki Museum, and it's a very modern contemporary design, by the way, and it's built right on an old site. And when I say old, in New Zealand anything under 1900 is old, and they managed to keep the old facade of the old buildings, and it's a brick facade and 3 or 4 different shops linked together by the same facade, and they've included it in this new building. And looking at this photo of it here, you guys can see what I mean. How cool does that look? It's like they've sort of captured the past with the new modern build, and that's why I've decided to do this simple design here. These walls here are going to signify an original build here that was either demolished or, World War II, it met its demise, and the art gallery represents the rebirth of the site. Maybe the monument here, is a tribute to either the building or maybe some people that passed away, unfortunately, with the destruction of the building. But this tiled wall here that I've used to represent the old facade is such a good looking asset. You'll see me use it in a few other places as well, and I think it looks cool, just the remnants of the footing of the building, and a little ode or a nod to the past. So the rest of the area here, guys, I pretty much just detail it the same way that we have with the rest of the city, although you will see a couple of the first markets being installed in the city, and I do plan on doing a massive market, but that'll be in a later episode. But here I'm looking just to get the shop signs up, make sure there's lights and good access to all the buildings. If they need stairs, then I put stairs in, and then I look to do things like ivy and plants and all the other stuff that you've seen me do if you've watched the series up to this point. But I do try my best to make a point not to do anything exactly the same as I may have done in the past. It may be similar, but I try not to copy exactly. It can be difficult, to do that without 10,000 different props, but, getting creative definitely helps. So guys, if you're watching this and you're looking at this and you're wondering why there's a massive contemporary modern building in the middle of this little wee village, I promise you it will make more sense in the next episode, so hang in there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please hit that thumbs up. I appreciate your support, and I will see you guys on the next one. Take it easy, guys.